That sounds great. I want to tell everybody, update them on the Flavivirus Zika on the test of the Oxitec Franken mosquito, which they want to test at Key Haven. Key Haven is part of Monroe County in Florida, and it's very close to the end of the Keys. It's very close to Key West. Now, the residents of Key Haven voted not to allow the testing of these Oxitec mosquitoes, but the county overall said, yes, go ahead and test them. So right now, the Mosquito Control Board, along with the FDA and Oxitec, will be selecting a location other than Key Haven in Monroe County, Florida. Now, one thing I want to stress is that Monroe County, Florida includes not only the Keys, that is the island chain, but also a substantial piece of the southwestern part of Florida. So if they decide on a place inside the peninsula of Florida, that would be really big news. But we expect that they will pick a place in the Keys. So we will be watching that.
Okay, and then the issue about the sterile soil looks like the Bacillus thuringiensis gene that's instilled in cotton can take the land that's been affected and destroy the fungus that fixes the minerals and nutrients and make the soil sterile or barren so it can't grow plants. You mentioned that, and also the Bt toxin in cotton. It appears in places where it's been present, like Burkina Faso. They're taking it out now. In India, it appears that even physical contact with the corn causes a high rate of suicide. It's not just the financial stress of it. There seems to be some kind of neurotoxin present effect from the Bt, which is a bacterial neurotoxin for bees. I call Beheimer's disease because the concentration of Bacillus thuringiensis neurotoxin is 4,000 times higher than on, say, chrysanthemum plants created by the bacteria itself. This gene actually, it gets into the gut bacteria of the bees and destroys the central nervous system, so they can't find their way back to the hive, and they get what I call Beheimer's. So it's having an effect in humans, but the unexpected effect was the effect of the Bt cotton on the actual soil, killing the soil. And you mentioned that up to a third of the soils across America may well already be affected by this, this toxic effect to the normal ecosystem with the fungi that fix minerals in the soil available for plants to grow and create nutrients and vitamin content.
Yes, the Bt trait that is introduced into cotton and corn crops through the seeds is a trait that is supposed to kill off insects. That is, they took a gene from a soil bacteria that will kill some insect pests and inserted it into the genome of the cotton seed and of the corn seed. Now, what happened was that they said that this would have no direct effect on humans or any other plants or animals, including other insects. Unfortunately, there is a study from the Europeans that was done in China on the cotton Bt, and they used 3 different strains of cotton Bt, and they also used 3 strains of just the regular cottonseed. And then they studied it for 3 years. And, we know that, we have been told by the Monsanto and the FDA that they were happy because it turned out that the Bt cotton trait killed other insects besides the ones that they thought it would kill. Unfortunately, they did not do their homework on the entire ecosystem. And what happened was that apparently this Bt trait that emits a toxin killed the fungi. That's the mold that grows in the soil. And as it turns out, the fungi is very important to plant life because it carries, for instance, phosphorus into the roots of the plants. It makes it possible for the plants to absorb phosphorus and other minerals. So what they discovered was that because this BT trait killed the fungi, the soil became less productive. And in fact, they say that we have lost an estimated third of all arable land to soil infertility.
Wow.
Now,
that's pretty serious.
That is disastrous.
Yeah. And this fungi, by the way, they believe developed around 450 million years ago that allowed the land plants to actually grow on land by activating minerals that could be available to plant growth on land. So this is literally the lead colonization of land by this fungi that allowed the land organisms, including trees and mammals, etc., and other animals, reptilians, to actually develop on the land. So that's pretty significant. This is pre-dinosaur age.
Yes, one of the things it does that I found interesting was that let's say you have a field in which you are growing peas, and pea plants are relatively short in stature. But if an aphid, a group of aphids, colony of aphids attacks let's say the outermost pea plant, then that pea plant will register that and send information through the fungi to the other plants around it so that they can start producing a toxin that will kill the aphids.
Wow.
So we've got a communal, what would you call that? Communal plant.
I'll call it collective biological intelligence.
There you go, a collective biological intelligence that is only possible with the fungi.
Wow. That's a pretty important topic. So I'm sure we're going to do some updates on this in the future. And let's go back to our main guide. And one of the topics, we covered those two issues, Zika virus. And by the way, one thing we didn't talk about Zika was that the Zika virus can progress after birth. The Pope also has extended indefinitely special permission to do abortion on these babies that have basically no human cortex, and in fact it may even destroy even a lot of the subcortical nuclei, so that even the baby may become anencephalic, which means even the reptilian brain is destroyed.
Well, no, he didn't actually say it was okay. He said that as long as the woman reports it to the priest may absolve her of the sin of killing the neonatal that she is carrying.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. To me, we should be working very diligently to try to stop the genetic defect and see if we can work on either intranatally or whatever, regrowing the cortex, because we know we can do intranatal stem cell therapies and so on. You have two major things. You got to stop the virus from affecting the endoplasmic reticulum, and you then have to instill stem cells to actually regrow a cortex. You actually have a physical human being there, complete, rather than just a partial human being, almost like just growing organs. This would be almost like growing a anencephalic, which they've talked about in terms of an organ donor, is creating an anencephalic human being for organ donation to someone who would require arms and legs, etc., or other essential internal organs. It's a very scary line to cross, and it's one that needs to have much more debate and talk.
Well, the Old Testament says that in God's world, a man will leave his parents and abide with his wife, and that the species will continue on through their generations. Now, if you bear if a woman has Zika and she bears a damaged child, that child is not human because it cannot itself bear children.
Well, it's a partial humanoid because any remnant of the cortex, it's almost like if someone is diagnosed as brain dead, it means basically they have no cortical activity. It's the same criteria as someone in a sense born brain dead.
Well, in any case, I think
that would be the criteria that I would say might kind of give you grounds to say, hey, this is not a fully human, because if you can prove that the person has no cortex. Now, we have seen people that have been in coma for years that come back, but they have an intact cortex. If there's no cortex, there's no capacity to be a human, right?
As far as I know, they can still reproduce a child
right.
that can reproduce.
Okay, the next topic we want to talk about is what? Radiation or terrorism or constitution? Which one?
Let's go to radiation. We have two scrams that I want to talk about. One is at Oyster Creek. I guess I need to fix that. It's in New Jersey, in case you don't know. It's right on the coast, close to Philadelphia. And they had a hot shutdown, and it was an automatic. So this is the computer software within the nuclear power plant that shut down, that is, inserted the control rods into the fuel rods because there was a problem with their sensors, and so they went into a hot shutdown. Now this is very similar to what Chernobyl went to, and then when they tried to start it up again is when it blew up, when it had a fission. They had a fission event there. What happened was that there was the main feed water system was maintaining the water level, and the decay heat is being removed by the main turbine bypass valves to the main condenser, so the water is not escaping into the air above the nuclear power plant. It was a turbine valve that did not test right, and so during that test, the nuclear power plant shut itself down.
Right.
Now, in addition, we had a Scram, which is a red button event in Farley, Alabama. And we've talked a lot about Farley recently. They've been trying to get it up and operating, and they're having trouble with that. But in any case, there's about 500,000 people that live within a 50-mile radius. And, they only evacuate 10 miles. So, but that doesn't mean that the radiation doesn't go up to 50 miles.
Pretty close to Tallahassee, Florida, too.
Very close to Tallahassee, Florida. It's right on the border. It's at a triple junction of Georgia and Alabama and Florida. And it was licensed in 1977, and the second unit was in 1981. So it's well past its prime, and since it's operating, we know that the Nuclear Regulatory Agency, NRC, relicensed it for an extended time, and they're probably using the high burn-up fuel there.
Right, which
now,
is dangerous
this is in hot standby, and this was a manual. In other words, somebody in the control room hit the big red button and shut down the plant. What happened was that the control rods were inserted into the fuel rods to stop the heating of the water. And it went from 100% operation to 0%, and it's in hot standby. And the problem with that is that, again, this is the pre-Chernobyl situation before it blew up. And so we hope that the people that are there know what they're doing. Now, what happened was, and we've been having these problems at other reactors, and that has to do with voltage swings. In other words, the reactor power, there's voltage swings on the line, and they thought that this one might have been caused by the voltage regulator. So they'll be testing that. It is possible that we have voltage swings because of the off-site power. All nuclear power generators have to be powered with off-site power. That is, they cannot self-start. It's not like a motor that can self-start. So this is a different thing. And we have had high winds by nuclear power plants where they have had voltage excursions to the point that they've had to shut them down.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's truly amazing. So, and then we also watch the Nuclear Emergency Tracking Center, and there was only one place in the United States where the gamma counts per second levels were of concern and they need to be watched, and that was at Boston, Massachusetts. The counts per minute of gamma energy in the energy range of 600 to 800 kilo electron volts was 302, and the high is 432. But because it's above the average of 300, they put it on the watch list. So you people in Boston, Massachusetts, you need to be calling your emergency managers and finding out why you have gamma radiation that is in your air and what they're doing about it.
Right, and the gamma is the bad one for damaging DNA permanently.
That's right. There's alpha, beta, and gamma. Alpha is pretty heavy and it moves pretty slow in your skin as long as it is intact. Now, if you have a wound, an open wound, that's not good because it gets into blood. But as long as you have gloves and a shirt on, and as long as you're dressed properly, then alpha probably will not bother you. It might get caught in your clothes, and you should probably wash them when you get home. Beta, although it's much lighter and it travels much faster, it usually bumps into something, and so it doesn't usually penetrate the skin. But gamma will go right through you. It'll go through metal piping. It'll go through, well, it'll go through cinder block if it's thick enough. But you do not want to be caught in a gamma radiation spray.
Right.
And that's why we watch those Geiger counters. These are not Geiger counters. A Geiger counter counts alpha and beta. These are actually gamma ray detectors that they use.